Hello, welcome. We're happy to have you here today for the presentation for IHC Academy of the Family Resource Network, talking about their inclusivity toolkit and the importance of people with disabilities as thought leaders. My name is Rebecca Martin, and I'm a graduate assistant with the grant facilitation team at the Rutgers University Edward J. Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy, working to coordinate the New Jersey Inclusive Healthy Communities training series and IHC Academy trainings. We're thrilled to have you here for Family Resource Network, who has a long history of serving people with disabilities in New Jersey. Before we begin, I'd like to do a few housekeeping notes for you. We would like you to be aware that we're recording the event. We have enabled captions for the event, and I've spotlighted the ASL interpreter for ease of access. There will be time for questions and answers towards the end of the conversation today. Please feel free to add any questions that come up in the chat or hold them until the end, and you'll have the opportunity to unmute if you'd like to ask directly. Given your interest in today's training opportunities, we would like to update you about future ones as well. So if you would like to opt out of receiving information about the IHC program, you can indicate this to me in the chat, or you can email me and I'll put my email in the chat in a moment. Screen reader accessible slides for today's presentation are available, and I'll also place a link for their download in the chat in a moment as well. And then finally, I'd like to take a moment to express our deep appreciation to Perry Neron and her team at the New Jersey Division of Disability Services for making this training series and the entire IHC grant program possible. And now, without further ado, I will turn it over to the Family Resource Network.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you everyone for joining us. This presentation will be about creating inclusivity in the community and the workplace. Like Rebecca mentioned, we're from the Family Resource Network. My name is Jenna Baudelaire, and I'm the Health Promotion Coordinator. I am going to bounce it to Paul to give us a little introduction on himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Paul Munez. I am the Senior Vice President of Community Engagement at the Family Resource Network. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, Paul. And Richard, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
My name is Richard Hood. I'm one of the consultants on this most recent cohort and my role was to create the written Inclusive Healthy Communities Accessibility Guide.
Thank you. And last but not least, Kiernan.
Hi, my name is Kiernan Dempsey. I am a consultant editing a promotional video for the Inclusivity Scorecard.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to let Paul start the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenna. So I want to just spend a few minutes before we jump into the wonderful work that Jenna and her team have been doing on the accessibility, the inclusivity scorecard, excuse me, by talking a little bit more broadly about the Family Resource Network's commitment to inclusivity. On the slide before you, you see the logos of our new brand refresh, which I love. The Family Resource Network is comprised of 3 organizations that fall under our umbrella: Autism Family Services of New Jersey, Caregivers of New Jersey, and Epilepsy Services of New Jersey. The new logo that we put together, you can see that it's this interweave. And this interweave is symbolic, it's purposeful. The idea is that across these 3 organizations and the work we do, we are aiming to promote inclusivity and engagement and integration at every step, at every turn. We look to promote these things in hiring, recruiting, and retaining employees with disabilities at every level of our organization, ensuring that all of our staff have the proper resources, technology, and support they need to be successful. Next slide, please, Jenna. I did not see this version of this. This is an awesome picture. Thank you. I got surprised.
I added that.
So, when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, FRN really takes a holistic approach and aims to address representation disparities and differential feelings of belonging across all axes. We've recently, along with our rebrand, just released our new strategic plan blueprint, which includes HR initiatives aimed at attracting talent from across diverse talent pools. We do this by things like community engagement events, like job fairs or employee referral programs. We target marketing and services to areas with diverse populations. A lot of people are not aware of how segregated the environment in New Jersey is. And, you know, that for lack of a
Sorry, did I
better,
wake you?
excuse me.
That's over by Rockville.
A lot of people are perhaps not aware of how segregated New Jersey is by things like class and race. And because of that, you know, not that that's a good thing, but we can target areas to be able to promote diversity throughout the organization, both internally in the things we do and externally in the programs and services we deliver. We're also working to do things like making new inroads with diverse vendors and partners. And we provide robust DEIB training for staff and leadership. To accomplish these goals, senior leadership, with the exception of me, because I'm new, has been trained in diversity, equity, and inclusion through Florida Southern University. And we've been working with Alexina Consulting for the last 3 years to really make moves in terms of genuine inclusivity across all relevant axes. Next slide, please. So when it comes to accessibility, the Family Resource Network is committed to treating all people in a way that allows them to maintain their dignity and independence. We believe in integration and equal opportunity. We are committed to meeting the needs of people with disabilities and do so by preventing and removing barriers to accessibility. Now, I know that lots of organizations out there have beautiful accessibility statements like that. One thing I really love about the Family Resource Network is that we're genuinely about it from top to bottom, both internally and externally. Next slide, please. So we have an accessibility plan. It is a living, breathing document that whenever it needs to be updated, it will be. But we have a committee that has come together that evaluates barriers to accessibility on a regular basis, including barriers that might have to do with attitudes and behaviors of anyone involved in an interaction, barriers that come from information and communication, technology, organizational arrangements within FRN. Are there things that we need to do to restructure to make sure that everyone can fully participate in the work we do? And also sort of more traditional things like architectural and physical barriers. We're always on the lookout for those things. And of course, when our staff or participants bring up that something is needed, we look into it on a case-by-case basis. And once a barrier is identified, committee members create an action plan to reduce or eliminate the barrier as possible. This last point, I think, is very much in alignment with the spirit of the Inclusivity Scorecard and Accessibility Toolkit. This deep-seated drive that we have at the Family Resource Network to truly and genuinely make strides in addressing these barriers instead of just putting Band-Aids over them.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Paul. I'm going to take it over from here and discuss our Inclusivity Scorecard and Toolkit, which has been the primary focus of this last cohort of the IHC grant program and was designed and developed in the first cohort of the program. So what is the Inclusivity Scorecard and Toolkit? It is a self-assessment tool that is aimed to determine the inclusivity and accessibility of a public space or venue. The scorecard and toolkit were both developed from focus groups with perspectives of individuals with disabilities, their families, advocates, and other community members. It is used by management and owners or by consumers and visitors. It assesses 5 main priority areas, including accessible approach and entrance, access to services, goods, and supports, access to restrooms, approachability of staff, and website accessibility. The toolkit is accompanying the scorecard and contains a South Jersey recreational accessibility guide and a promotional video. The perfect score for your scorecard is a 25 in each priority area. The higher your score, the more accessible and inclusive your space is. The rankings are 1 being poor, which is not inclusive of people with disabilities, 2 fair, 3 good, 4 very good, and 5 excellent, which would be fully inclusive of all abilities. And here are just some photos of us evaluating the scorecard, which was our primary focus for this past cohort. It was developed in cohort 1, and cohort 2 was really used to evaluate it to ensure that it was a reliable and valid tool. Our partners and supporters for this project. Stockton University has worked closely with us to evaluate and research the scorecard. Our supporters are the New Jersey Division of Disability Services, New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, and Rutgers University. The first priority area of the scorecard assesses accessible approach and entrance. This really means the parking lot, if the parking lot is paved or if it's on rocks, if they have an adequate number of handicap parking spaces or any handicap parking spaces at all. Does the facility use ramps? Do they have curb cuts? Do they only have stairs as an option to enter the building? Are there any automatic door openers? How heavy is the door? Does it require more than 5 pounds of force to open the door? Does your facility have materials in multiple different formats? Are there elevators? Are the elevators working? And are service animals or personal assistants allowed within the facility? The second priority area of the scorecard is access to services, goods, and supports. So this really focuses on when you actually get inside of the building, how disturbing could the noise, smells, and brightness be for people with any kind of disability? Does your facility have hours specific for people with disabilities, or do they highlight hours on their website where it's most busy so people might want to avoid these certain times? Are aisles wide enough for a wheelchair to go through, or are they too narrow? Tablets. So you'll see in the photo that I included on the left, it's actually a photo of Wawa, but is the tablet that you order on tall enough for somebody with a disability or short enough for somebody with a disability? Do you consider visual and cognitive impairments when including certain asks on the tablet? Are interpreter services available throughout the building? Is the location easily navigated on GPS, Uber, Lyft, any kind of transportation company? Is there a map of the facility to easily guide through? Is your facility culturally relevant? Are signs easy, or even like your goods and services easy to understand regardless of experience and knowledge? And is there a sliding cost for all participants? The third piece of the scorecard is about restrooms and access to restrooms. So a couple things that we look for in the scorecard would be the automatic door opener, if there is one, the toilet height, adult changing tables, availability of hygiene products for all, counter and sink height, accessible stalls, cleanliness, and if there is a cleaning schedule. Alerting staff if if an emergency occurs, is there an option to even do that? And what would the course of action be if there were the option? Are the family restrooms available on the first floor, or are they on the second floor and the elevator is broken, so someone with a wheelchair might not be able to access it? How many stalls are in the restroom? And is there availability of any gender neutral restrooms? The fourth priority area assesses staff. So how approachable is your staff? Are they willing to assist with somebody with a disability? Do they know how to assist somebody with a disability? Maybe it's not so much willingness, but just knowledge about how they are unsure how to help. Does your facility offer staff trainings to maybe increase inclusivity and accessibility within your location? Do individuals with disabilities have an active role in the planning process of staff trainings? And are your staff identifiable? So does your staff have a uniform or a name badge so somebody, if they needed assistance, could easily identify who is staff and who's not? The last priority area of our scorecard assesses website accessibility. So can the content be transferred in other formats? Are your fonts inclusive? Meaning, is it really bright yellow where someone might not be able to read properly on the screen? Or is it dark and large font and color where it would be easy to read for any ability? Is there alternative text for images? Is there representation of people with disabilities on your website in the photos? Again, is there a map of the facility located on your website? And does your website have sitemap navigation? So we did spend, like I mentioned, we spent this last cohort evaluating the scorecard that was developed in cohort 1. It has been evaluated at 49 locations. Each location is located in Atlantic, Cape May, and Ocean counties. And every location that we evaluated the scorecard in were all outdoor recreational coastal zones. So this means we use the scorecard. Obviously, you can see I'm standing on the boardwalk. So we were outside on the boardwalk. We were in beaches, marinas, trails, parks, anywhere outdoors within those 3 counties. We're currently undergoing 20 additional evaluation sites. So we are going to move a little bit northern and evaluate in 20 sites in Burlington, Camden, and Gloucester counties. And we will be continuing the work in the coastal zones. And this time we're also going to evaluate in overburden communities that is defined by the New Jersey Division of Environmental Protection. And I'm happy to report that through our evaluation studies this past cohort, we are confirmed to be a reliable and valid tool by the statistician we've been working with. So that kind of sums it up for the scorecard, and the toolkit, like I briefly mentioned in the beginning, will be accompanying the scorecard. So you're going to use the scorecard to assess your inclusivity and accessibility within the space. So like I mentioned, it's those 5 priority areas. Let's say that you score poorly on restrooms. Let's say you score a 12 out of the 25 perfect score. You're going to use our toolkit to increase your score and overall become more inclusive. The idea is to hopefully eventually have it as an interactive web page where it would be really easily navigationable, if that's a word, easily to navigate, I guess is the better word. And you can just click on the picture that you're looking to increase accessibility in. So here's a little like snippet of the draft that we have. This is what it's going to look like. Each one of the areas underneath the priority area will be exactly from the scorecard. So the exact sentence that you're looking to increase in, it'll be really clear for you direction and solution on how to better their score. It will also be publicly available to accompany the scorecard on the FRN website. So a part of the toolkit will not only just be solutions to better your score. We have also included a South Jersey recreational accessibility guide and a promotional video. I'm going to pass it over to Richard to describe his workflow and how he wrote up the guide.
Okay, so as some of you who may not have heard in the beginning, my name is Richard Hood. I am a consultant on this project, and my role was to create an accessibility guide for South Jersey for the counties of Atlantic, Burlington, Camden, Cape May, Cumberland, Gloucester, Salem, and Ocean, which I don't really consider South Jersey, but Central Jersey gets no respect, and we just had to lump it in there. So it looked at a variety of categories from public transportation, paratransit, anything to do with fitness or tourism, trails, beaches, fishing, medical care, a whole variety of different programs and services. And really all it consisted of was just gathering information. Some of it was the website information. Some of it was for a lot of the fitness facilities, I would actually have to call and ask them about like the layout of their facilities. And some of the tourist spots had more accessibility, like it was more prominent on their website. So for example, the Jersey Shore Blue Claws baseball team had an entire ADA accessibility tab on their webpage. So actually in that one, I actually had to condense what they had for the sake of the guide, whereas for a lot of others, there was maybe only a couple of sentences or a couple of paragraphs of information that I would then just have to paraphrase and put it in the guide. So I just would hope that this guide, and I also looked through different organizations such as the Y and the ARC. I found some websites. One is called A Day in Our Shoes, and it's about and that listed beach accessibility in different towns for people with disabilities. Several beach towns also had listings on their own website, Ventnor and several others that listed on their website the accessibility features. So certainly it is a hope of mine with the accessibility guide that all of those different sources of information can be brought together for people in these counties to know, and maybe people will be more willing to go to different places if they know through the accessibility guide or later on through the toolkit, if they know for a fact how and that they will be accommodated and how, they might be more inclined to, number one, get out in the community, and number two, patronize a certain venue where, okay, I know this place is more accessible than that place, so this is the one I'm going to go to.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Richard. This guide consists of locations listed in those categories that are deemed inclusive through their website or from calling. It is our future aspiration to hopefully collaborate our scorecard with these locations that are already deemed inclusive, and from there create further partnerships, and again hope that they're utilized more in the community. Kiernan is also on this call. He also has crafted a promotional video that's not just publicly released yet, but we will share it soon. Kiernan, do you mind sharing a few words about the video and your process with editing it?
Yes, definitely. So I'm currently working on editing a promotional and educational video about the inclusivity scorecard. The video is produced by the FRN team in collaboration with a videographer from Stockton. It will explain what the scorecard is, how it works, and how it can help businesses and public venues and other places like that to be more inclusive. It includes quotes from FRN and Stockton employees, and it also includes interviews with people with disabilities and their caregivers. These interviews have them talk about some firsthand experiences where they encountered a place that wasn't as inclusive as it could be. We hope that this video will help people in public places and who own businesses and people like that to think harder about how inclusive their place is and what sorts of people they might be accidentally leaving out. The video will point to both the scorecard and toolkit as a resource that they can use to help improve the inclusivity of their place and make it more welcoming to everyone.
Thanks so much, Kiernan. I mentioned before about some future aspirations we have for the scorecard, which is highlighting and feature those locations on our website that have scored highly. And we're hoping that we can collaborate with those locations that are listed throughout the accessibility guide. Another large goal that we have for the scorecard is mandatory usage instead of voluntary, or maybe even incentivized participation of the scorecard. We hope that as many locations in New Jersey can use it and want to use it as possible. And that wraps up our presentation. Thank you, the IHC Academy, for having us. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much. That was very informative. It was a great presentation. I see that Rich has a question he'd like to ask, so we'll jump in there. Go ahead, Rich.
This might be kind of a offhanded question, but you had mentioned cultural relevancy on one of the slides. Obviously, I understand what that concept means, but what does that mean relevant to the guide and the toolkit? Just out of curiosity.
No, that's a really good question. I think that it's important to note those things throughout the scorecard, if a place is culturally relevant or not. this can mean in addition to a disability and all abilities. And I think that it's a little more detailed on the actual scorecard about precisely what we're looking for. But I think we're just making sure that it is relevant for all backgrounds and cultures. Good question, though.
If we have any other questions, please feel free to put anything into the chat if you'd like, or you can unmute and ask yourself. I have a question, so I'll start off with that. I'm interested in why you've the strategy behind deciding to go towards the coastal regions and using that as kind of your first environment for testing.
No, that's another really good question. We actually formed a partnership with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, and they were really interested in having us use it in coastal zones. So we were more than willing to try it out there first. It's been very successful. Bringing it to beaches and all those publicly accessible places. It's really aligned with our goals at FRN, and it's been really a good opportunity to not only think of buildings, but also think of places that are free to access and outdoors. So yeah, it was really that partnership that brought us there. But we hope in the future that we can also expand to buildings and other locations.
Thank you. I'm sure there are more questions. Who has something they would like to ask or?
No, it is definitely a lot of information. I also want to mention that John's comment in the chat, we absolutely want that, and we will definitely share it with you as soon as it is available and ready.
So I guess I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I know a little bit about the background of your project and the beginning of the development. So I know that people with disabilities have been part of advising on this project from the very beginning. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to your processes there, or sort of the values behind using people with disabilities as thought leaders that have informed this project as it's developed.
No, that's a great question. It's actually funny. I was a graduate student on the first cohort of this project, and I was actually at the first focus group for the scorecard. So it is full circle for me. So at the very first focus group we had, I was very involved in the Get Fit program at Rowan. So we used a lot of the participants and families that we had access to there. We invited, I believe someone from the ARC was there. I think someone from the Y as well was there. So we had advocates and community members. And basically it was just a big conversation about what are the struggles you face in public areas, and what are things that you feel businesses are not so considerate or inclusive of. And really it came from those conversations. I remember being very surprised about how much restrooms were a problem. I think that most of the conversation was about the restrooms and how it's almost always an issue in public locations. So I hope that kind of answers your question. We really wanted to include voices of people that actually are experiencing this. And I think it was a really good conversation to have. And obviously it led us here. We did do some research as well, in addition to the focus groups, but the focus group was really like the main drive for the information on the scorecard.
Thank you. Let's see, we have a question in the chat. Adrian would like to know what are next steps and what is on your bucket list for inclusion? It's a great question, Adrian.
That is a really good question. So our next steps are definitely to have it be evaluated a little more. Like I had mentioned, we're undergoing 20 additional locations. From there, we'd love for it to be publicly accessible. We really want to encourage as many New Jersey businesses and locations to use it as possible. I've always envisioned the scorecard to hopefully be you know, when you go to a business and there's like a stamp of approval from like the Department of Health, where it was like inspected. I would really love for the scorecard to be like that one day, where you walk in and there's a sign that says deemed inclusive from the inclusivity scorecard from FRN and DDS. And I think that's kind of the avenue that we're looking for it to be, where it's kind of a norm and not something that is not talked about. So that's a big goal that we have. Another goal we have, I think I mentioned it a little in the presentation, is the locations that we've identified through the recreational accessibility guide were deemed inclusive. Again, just through their website, just through their phone or through a phone call, but we really would like them to utilize the scorecard as well. That would be kind of another next step for us. And really just promoting it and making the toolkit that interactive, really easy to use site. But at the end of the day, we'd really just love for more people to be using it.
Are there any, do you feel that the scorecard will be universal in a way that will work well for businesses and schools and anything like that as well? Because I know you're testing it mostly in outdoor spaces, so I'm just interested in that.
Yeah. So there has been conversation of having some extension pieces where the questions being asked in certain locations will be a little more tailored to the location of where we're testing it, if that makes sense. So the coastal zones, obviously, like a beach does not have an elevator, right? So we're working on ways to make each extension more tailored to the location. And we also want each place to score high, obviously. So if we have a question about elevators on the beach, clearly they're not going to get the full score that we want them to. So we are working, like I mentioned, tailoring to each location to ensure like the best score and obviously more inclusivity and accessibility.
Thank you. I have a question from John in the chat. He says that he's wondering if you're speaking with the folks at Highlands Preservation Alliance, another grantee, about access to outdoor places, parks, and natural areas.
We definitely are, actually. So that partnership with DEP was brought through from the IHC project and from DDS. And they are another grantee within DEP. So we've been working very closely with them, and they've been extremely helpful in us finding locations to evaluate the scorecard in, and they've used it themselves, which has been fantastic. So they've been an excellent partner, and yes, we've definitely been in communication with them.
Thank you. If anybody else has any questions you'd like to put in the chat, I mean, I could just keep asking questions because I find this very interesting. I have a design background too, so it's
that's
right
great. Yeah, thank you.
But I guess in the meantime, I'll ask. I think you mentioned that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you mentioned that you were thinking about ways to incentivize people to participate with this, and I was just kind of wondering what you were envisioning might be needed to get people on board, especially from like businesses and things like that.
That is a really, really good question. So honestly, we're just beginning those conversations. I think that a large incentive would be to highlight those locations through our website and really promote them. That would be the number one incentive that I've thought of thus far. If Paul or Liza wants to add anything to that, please feel free. But we are working on thinking of ways to increase participation in the scorecard. And I think that's our number one goal, really, is to increase the amount of users using it. So yeah, Paul, Liza, do you feel like you wanted to add anything to that question?
Of course. And this is one of those sort of design issues that gets very complex very quickly, and we are on the front end of this. So what ends up coming of these conversations we're having could be very different than what I say right now. But there's incentives along two dimensions, right? There's incentives for the organization, the location that might be completing the scorecard, right? And then there's incentives for us at FRN as well, right? And we want to be mindful of incentives going in both of those directions. So potential arrangements, for example, could be using a strategy where if a location wants to implement the scorecard, they could either download it and complete it themselves or hire us to do it for them, right? That would be an incentive structure that faces FRN. Again, will that actually materialize? I don't know. It's just an example of what could happen, right? On the other side of things, in early development, one strategy we might take is really looking carefully at those businesses and organizations in New Jersey who have taken genuine, strong steps to promote genuine inclusion and target them first and highlight them as leaders of the community. that's something that will incentivize them and also build inroads between them and our organization, right? So these sort of all-encompassing, holistic, robust, and sort of win-win solutions are exactly the types of solutions that we're after. It's just going to take probably a few more months of sorting out what that actually means.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I see that Rich has his hand up, so
Oh.
go ahead, Rich.
Sorry if I may, of what, who was that just spoke? Paul? Right? Was that Paul who just spoke?
Yes.
Correct.
Off of what you were saying about the holistic incentive, that's probably a really good idea because on one hand, yeah, maybe the using money, for example, to just say, oh, we'll give you a few $100. That might not really work above and beyond just doing a bare minimum. And certainly getting goodwill would actually help them get more business. So it could benefit them in the long run to, every business theoretically has to be somewhat ADA compliant. Whereas if they're saying, we're going to go above and beyond ADA compliant, thanks to the help we get from IHC grant, that could be a win for them. Obviously, for a for-profit company, they also have to think about money, where they can be like, hey, these people, we're getting more people to come to our place. So this will help offset the cost that we're making this extra effort. Maybe it's costing us a little bit extra now, but then they'll get more money because they'll get more people coming from this
Precisely.
different community.
Precisely. And, one thing that's interesting is that there's some models that already exist that we're looking into that have been able to do this in a way that opens up revenue streams. So for example, you could think, I'm sure at least some people in the room have heard of the LEED certification for the eco-friendliness of a building, right? That is something that organizations will pay to have that certification done, right? And then LEED will help, point them in directions that they can improve, right? So LEED is just one of a suite of examples of building certifications and location certifications that already exist and have already been well received, right? So these are the sorts of things, the novel strategies we're exploring, because something as simple as making it a cash transfer, hey, we'll do the inclusivity scorecard if you pay us, right? That creates a barrier to entry. In effect, it defeats our point because it ruins inclusion for an inclusivity scorecard, right? So
Right. No, I wasn't. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no,
I wasn't even just saying, dangle $100 in front of them and say, do it, and we'll give you the $100. I was more or less saying, maybe like you say, help defray the cost, and then they'll have, again, they won't have to maybe put out as much money. And oh, by the way, if they can get the positive publicity through FRN or the IHC site or whomever, hey, that's more people that see, hey, we're above and beyond ADA accessible. So why can't, this large segment of the population who might not have known about us before come on down and check us out?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I am trying to be mindful of time because I know our interpreter has another event as well right at the end of this. So thank you so much for interpreting for us today. We may take a few more questions, but I understand you have to leave. So thank you. I am excited to hear about the scorecard. It's been something I've been following for a couple of years, and it really seems like it's coming along and I think has a lot of potential to make positive changes in New Jersey. I was wondering, I guess as sort of a final question, how you feel, because, FRN has a long history in New Jersey and has a lot of partners and relationships throughout Central and South New Jersey specifically. And I was wondering how you feel those relationships have been important to the development of the scorecard or will be important as you roll this out and make this really get a toehold in the New Jersey community working toward inclusion.
Those partners have been essential, honestly. We've been working with those partners, not only just for the focus groups and beginning conversations, but just having them evaluate the scorecard, use a scorecard in your location and let us know your feedback so we can improve it and make it the best scorecard possible. They've been amazing partners. And even in the future, we'd love to work with them for them to actually utilize the completed, finalized, and publicly available scorecard and then promote that as well. So our partners have been essential. I keep on saying it, but like it was really, they're great. And I think that's a good question that you had. And we'll continue to flourish those partnerships once it's actually available and we actually promote it to the communities.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any final words anybody would like to say or any final questions as we're wrapping up? Okay, I want to thank you all so much for your time. I think this presentation was fantastic and really told us a lot about what you're doing. I again want to thank the Division of Disability Services for supporting IHC, giving us the opportunity to have these presentations. And we had Jackie here with us today. She just had to run, but she said also that she really enjoyed the presentation. So thank you all very much. And thank you.
Yes, thank you, DDS, and thank you to all of our partners and supporters. Thank you all for coming and enjoying the presentation with us.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.